Good morning and welcome to our May 26th regular council meeting, calling the meeting to order at 0900. We don't have anybody registered for open mic. Is there anyone online? Okay, looking for an approval of the agenda. Councillor Nielsen. Any additions? Those in favor? Carried. Adoption of the minutes from the regular council meeting on May 12th, 2025. Councillor Blatz.
I move that council adopts the regular council meeting minutes for May 12th, 2025 as presented.
Moved by Councillor Blatz. Any errors or omissions? Those in favor? Carried. Consent agenda. Anything needing to be pulled? Councillor Nielsen.
I have no idea, to be honest with you. I'm still looking for clarification. So if we don't pull anything,
Then nothing gets brought up during the council meeting. There's no discussion.
so the item, for example, delegations would not be presented, because that comes from consent agenda. Library audit would not be discussed, because that comes from consent agenda.
Correct. I'm not seeing the delegation.
I got RCMP, Q4, quarterly update, consent agenda.
Yep. Yep.
So it would not, there'd
Correct.
be no presentation.
Correct.
Yes,
Okay.
I would like to pull the following items. RCMP Q4 update. Council action task summary. And CAO report.
Anything else? Yep. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull the library audited financial report just to make sure council is aware of what's happening at the library.
Okay, so it's in the agenda, so council would be aware of it, unless there's something you want to speak to it about.
No, I don't.
So that would be why we would pull something from consent agenda, is if
Okay.
you wanted to speak to it.
Okay, I just was wondering whether the public needs to know that we're back on track, that's all.
You are more than welcome to speak to it if you'd like, but that would be why we would pull a consent
Okay,
agenda.
I will, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody need to have them broken out? Those in favor? Carried. Item 6.1, Council Action Tax Summary as of May 26, 2025. Yeah, Councillor Nielsen.
I move the City Council accepts the Council Action Task Summary Report as of May 26, 2025 as information. And I've got a couple of questions, if I may.
Yep, go ahead.
I guess right off the bat, one of the things I'm wondering about, I guess through the chair to administration, what items or how do items get placed on the Council Action Task Summary Sheet?
Through the chair to Councillor Nelson, the items that are placed on it are outcomes of council meetings, either tasks that are assigned or a motion that's made that we have to report back to council on. They are then added. Sorry, my mic is on, it's just a little low. Yeah, and so it's an outcome of tasks assigned from council meetings. We had that after the agenda review is completed, we had it as a task and then report back to council.
Okay, thank you. So then I have a follow-up to that would be, and I need clarification, I guess. The status of playgrounds. A number of pieces of equipment were removed from the public parks, and dollars were added to the budget for replacement. And I believe a conversation came out of council relative to establishing a plan as to how we would be moving forward to be replacing equipment and what equipment would be purchased and so forth. Am I incorrect with that?
Through the chair to council. We have had recently 6 public engagement sessions regarding playground within the city and playground equipment.
And I appreciate that. I guess my question, Kevin, is why would that not appear on the action task summary form? Like, why wouldn't we see it there with actions and a report saying we've had the 6 engagements and so forth?
Through the chair to council, I believe that wasn't specifically mentioned in a previous council meeting, so that's why it doesn't show up on this report.
Oh, sorry. Thanks.
But the idea is to bring that information back once we've gathered enough information to bring to council.
So what I'm hearing, I think, is that there wasn't a direct motion or an action required through council to do anything with this? And that's why it doesn't appear on the action task summary?
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, the playground modernization is a capital budget item, and we report on budget items separately. These are tasks that come out of a council or a council motion. So the capital budget would provide, through the CAO's report, would provide an update on those on a monthly basis.
Would that, thank you, would that hold true for the same conversation about the Maniluk Aquatic Center wave pool area? There was a conversation regarding what are we going to be doing with that area if the wave pool is not operationalized? And there was supposed to be action coming out of that in terms of choices of alternatives for that space, as I understand it.
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, I can check in on that. I don't think it's in the council action task item right now. So if there was already a motion in that regard, I can check and report back to council.
Thank you, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anything further? Those in favor? Carried. 8.1, RCMP Q4 2024-2025 quarterly update.
Through the chair to council, RCMP Inspector Spans was supposed to be here, but he hasn't arrived yet, so
Okay.
can we
will-
postpone that?
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, 9, Committee of the Whole, Library Audited Financial Report. Councillor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to thank our finance department for working closely with the director and manager at the library to finally get all the financial statements up to date and current, and it's very nice to have the quarterly statements as well. So thank you very much for all of that. The library staff is very happy with the working relationship that they now have with the city, with the city finance department, and everything's going ahead smoothly. So I just like to report that. Thank you.
Fantastic. Do you want to make that motion?
I would move that council receive the library audited financial report as information.
Moved by Councillor Elliott. Any further discussion? Those in favor? Carried. 9.2, monthly city manager report to council and the community. Go ahead, Councillor Nielsen.
Not sure which mic to use here. I move that City Council receives the city manager's report as information, and I have some questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair to administration, in the report, and I know CEO Howard is not here, but in the report it indicates that an internal employee has been trained in psychological first aid and will begin offering courses to employees in May. And I have 4 questions. The first one is, what is psychological first aid?
Through the chair to council, we're offering a number of, we're trying to offer a number of courses coming up this year. One is psychological first aid, and that's to help people deal with customers or public that are abusive and might have an impact on their own psyche.
Thank you. So, how was this supported in the organization previously?
Through the chair to council, we had intermittently offered courses on how to deal with irate customers or complaints to some of the frontline staff that, and this is a different type of a course than psychological first aid. It was more follow this step, go to this step, go to this step, where psychological first aid is a more wholesome kind of a course.
And so then who would be eligible for training? Who would receive the training? Not, yeah.
Through the Chair to Council, we're looking for the frontline staff that deal with the public and customers. They would be first in line to receive that training.
As this is a new initiative for the city, then the person that's providing this new service to employees of the city is taking this task on. Is there concern that other responsibilities will drop off their job description as they take this task on?
Through the Chair to Council, I think the intent here is to add that duty or that task now to an updated job description, so that would be a regular part of their new duties and job description.
And the reason I ask the question, and it's a bit of a loaded one, and I'll admit that, is that we're often informed that in an organization, we're not fully staffed, but secondly, that we lack capacity. So as we increase the workload the workload on certain employees, how does that help our lack of capacity?
Through the Chair to Council, I mean, that's a very good question, but the discussion around SLT and around LT was that it was more important to provide our staff with the ability and capabilities to handle customers and public and complaints in a more fulsome, wholesome way, and that was more important than we could all work together in that department to bring up what might be falling off that person's or individual's plate.
So I hear some assurances that nothing will be dropped from assigned duties while we take on this new task.
That was our intent. It was important enough that other people would pitch in to help because we thought that this type of training would be good for the organization.
And how often is the training? Is it just like a one-time course, or is it an ongoing program, or?
I believe it's like a regular first aid. I think it's a certificate every 3 years.
Thank you.
Councilor Bronco.
Thank you, Tyler. To Kevin, does council get this training? Because we deal with the public 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Because if anybody's going to listen to irate customers, it's council. So are we, or do we have to take a first aid course?
Through the Chair to Council, I would assume if council members wanted to participate, we might be able to offer a session for that as well.
Thank you.
So Alberta Municipal Health and Safety Association offers that, and they've been developing a program for elected officials.
Thank you.
Anything further? Those in favor? Carried. We're going to go back to 8.1 and get the quarterly update from the RCMP. Welcome, Inspector. Staff Sergeant. All good. I don't think the mic is on, though.
All right, like I said, good morning, everybody. So I'm here to give our fourth quarter report. So this is the quarter that would have ended March 31st. We're a little bit past, so some of the statistics are kind of beyond Q4, but gives kind of a good glimpse in time here. So today I'm going to go over the new annual performance plan, so the 24-25 annual performance plan. 24-25. Social disorder, a bit of an update there, and then a brief little talk about the navigation center that we're hoping to bring in this month. So our first priority, community engagement, continues to be a priority. We have 3 members currently working with our community policing unit. So they've been pretty keen on some town halls and various community engagement events now that the weather's improving. The town halls have largely been in the rural parts, so they were in Millet, Fallon, and one other Gwyn, I believe. So just kind of speaking to residents, kind of like we had here over the last couple of years. So we're going to look at doing a town hall, but probably closer to the end of the year here, kind of later on in the fiscal year. So the community engagement group is also leveraging the CSWB strategy here in Wetaskiwin. And what that means is we're, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, but meeting with other elected officials to try to get some resources outside of the policing world, more related to social services, social supports for our less fortunate and unhoused population, but I'll get into that a little later on. The next priority is crime reduction. And I should say too, these are all this year's annual performance plan is essentially a carryover from last year. Same umbrella priority issues, because they're all encompassing. It's the activities that fall within the priority issues will change based on the needs of the community, what we're hearing from council, residents, et cetera. So like I said, the next one is crime reduction. So this priority is managed by the crime reduction unit. 3 main focuses for the coming year. Obviously, fentanyl continues to be a significant problem, not only in this community, but across Alberta, and a hot topic across the country. Violent crime, because we are seeing a bit of a trend upwards on violent crimes, stabbings, machete attacks, bear spray, that sort of thing. So the crime reduction unit is going to focus on those a little more so than it did last year, as well as all the issues facing social disorder on the south side of the city and in some of our hot spots. As always, like I've said since I was posted here, there's going to be a continued use of analytics and analysis. So we're going to send our crew team to where the calls are being received and where the crime is actually happening. That's just, we need to be smart about our finite resources and where to deploy them. So we're going to lean heavily on that. Unfortunately, a couple weeks ago, our analyst took another job in Ontario, so we're currently without an analyst, which will make this a little more difficult. But that's why we have K Division headquarters to backstop our analytical reports. They're just going to take a little longer, is all. Some of our measurable targets for this year for crime reduction include we have a set amount of drug investigations that we want to complete, not just investigations, we're talking actual projects, very labor-intensive projects. We're going to continue with our anti-shoplifting initiatives. Shoplifting is a significant issue in this community, but it's also an issue that contributes directly to our social disorder, and actually, I would say, emboldens some of our people who are regular prolific offenders on the social disorder side. So we're going to target and work with businesses on the anti-shoplifting initiatives. And there will also be a focus on troublesome residents. And with that, we're working with Matt and his team with some of the homes around the community, and SCAN for that matter. So community safety is our next priority. This community safety is, like I've said in the past, is the attempt to reduce victimization or improve the perceptions of community safety across the city. This priority is largely held by our community policing unit, but some of the issues, some of the initiatives that are going to fall under this heading include our youth council, which has been a tremendous success, the development of a navigation center, and then continued focus on homelessness, working with the Hope Mission, et cetera. So again, our measurable targets include traffic safety initiatives, because traffic safety has actually ticked up a little bit with the the loss of photo radar. We're seeing increased speeds. Impaired driving has ticked up significantly, so we're going to bring in some traffic safety initiatives. Plus our special patrols, that includes our foot patrols, ATVs, we're bringing in the boat out in the rural parts, kind of bringing a different approach to how we're policing the hotspots, often with a bit of a softer touch than you might find with our crime reduction unit. So, and then with that comes crime prevention through environmental design. We're continuing pushing that on our businesses that are routinely hit with crime. The city, our CPO friends, they're all trained in, and we're leveraging them quite a bit on this initiative. It's a tactic that works. SEPTED works. We just need the buy-in from the businesses that are affected. Lastly, we have employee wellness. So as always, we have a finite number of members. We need to keep members working, engaged, and whatnot. So this year we're pivoting a little bit away from, say, physical wellness, more towards member development to try to improve morale and build on already strong morale. So we're focused on development. Bring in presentations such as financial literacy for all categories of employees, both our members and civilians. We brought in a presentation from our, it's called the street team, but our undercover unit out of Edmonton to give an awareness on how undercover operations work, how can you get into the program, that sort of thing. I believe we still have a gang enforcement guy coming in to talk about gangs across Alberta with our members, but also how to get into that world and how to cultivate intelligence, that sort of thing. So with training, it kind of helps. It's another tool in the member's belt, and hopefully that keeps them engaged and progressing forward in their careers. That'll contribute to wellness. Oh yes, of course. So I was just reading the last point I kind of forgot about. So with the movement, we're seeing some transfers taking place, and what that has allowed us to do is probably starting in September, we're going to have an internal position open on our crime reduction unit. Now the crime reduction unit is kind of, every member wants to be a part of it because it's kind of cool. You get to wear jeans and a t-shirt and it's awesome. But we only have so many positions. So what we've done is developed a vacant position on there where members can rotate through in a developmental opportunity to have an exposure to that side. The idea being you'll learn a lot in that position, and then when you're back on the front line in uniform, you can apply what you've learned there. So it's membership development, but also should help with the community safety piece as well. So those are our, the priority, kind of the annual performance plan priorities. So I'll touch a little bit on homelessness and social disorder. Obviously, you know, you can read the papers, being with citizens, council, everybody, visible homelessness and social disorder continue to be a key concern, both in the community and with our detachment. When I say it's ongoing concern for community and officers, it's not just the visibility of it, but we are seeing quite a few weapons coming out of the encampments, lots of weapons wandering the streets. So we need to put a plan in place to try to get our thumb on that issue. So the next few slides, these are the heat maps. We've shown these before, so it's kind of building what we've already seen, but and then bringing it into kind of current day. So go to the next slide, and this is, these slides begin, this was what the city looked like in 2021 in terms of social disorder. It was kind of a scatter shot all over the map. Where it's blue, that was highly concentrated. So then moving into 2022, sorry, I gotta make sure I get my years right, 1 second here. Sorry, that first one was 2019, moving into 2020, then into 2021. As we move through the heat maps, they start consolidating. By the time we reach about 2023, it's getting very clear where some of these, where kind of our social disorder issues have arisen. So this one here was, I gotta marry it up with my numbers here. This was 2023. 2023. So we focused on the hot spots. So we put our patrol members kind of where it's hot blue, and then as it progresses to the next year, you can see it progresses. I'll switch to the next slide. you can see it's now starting to really consolidate down near the Hope Mission, Syntax, kind of that area down there. And then moving into the next one, this was last year. So this is 2024 year end. So when you compare it to 2019, we've consolidated our social disorder problem really densely in that one area on the south. Residents across Wetaskiwin might notice this when you compare it to 2019, that we're not seeing the bank vestibule camping, we're not seeing many issues down Main Street, but we are highly consolidated down on the south there. So what our goal now is to kind of develop a plan to reduce that density down there, and that's where our navigation center hopefully comes into play. But what we've done, and again I'll reiterate, we focused on the hotspots throughout the city, which has now resulted in this one specific hotspot in the south. But to provide a little context to this, I'll kind of, they can go to the next slide. Sorry, this one was last year, the one before. This was last year, 2024. And then the last slide, that's kind of year to date. So you can see nothing's really changed from last year, we've continued on. But really the social disorder, like I said, has densely consolidated to that one area. But I think it's important to backstop this with some statistics. So over the past, since 2020, social disorder has accounted from anywhere between 29–28% of our overall call volume. This has not changed. So 2020 it was 29%, 2021 it was 28%, 2022 28%, 23 was 28%, and 24 is 28%. So all this to say, we focused on our hotspots. It hasn't got rid of the social disorder, it's pushed it to one area. So our goal this year is to try to bring that, say, 28 down to 26, 25 if we can. But that's not a, it's not a light lift, that one, lots there. So what have we been doing so far? We continue to collaborate with the Hope Mission. We have regular meetings with them. They'll come visit us at the detachment. I'll go down there and meet with their staff. Really to talk about, we'll use names, not here, but we'll use names. We'll say who's banned, who's on charges, who do we need to be mindful of, who should we focus on, what's kind of driving the issues at the mission, what's keeping people there. Just to share that information. Through that, we learned over the last, well, this presentation prepared this about a month ago, but as of about a month and a half ago, users of the camps, so anyone that's in a tent or anything, they no longer have access to the Hope Mission. So the tents that you see when you go by the south side, they're there in spite of the Hope Mission, not because of the Hope Mission. So that's a hard and fast rule, and that was through communication. We just can't allow, the camping to be easy, quite frankly. And in the past, when people were using the showers and food facilities, that's the incentive to keep the camp up. Now there's no incentive to keep the camp up. So that's a part of our ongoing collaboration with them. As well, banned individuals, obviously this should be pretty clear, but banned individuals have no access to services, where before they might have had a bit here and there. So on the note of encampments, there are still several encampments up, and I just talked with Matt this morning. They're going to be coming down on the 28th. Public Works is going to be taking them down. We do have, now that the weather is very nice, there's no reason to have the camps up. There's no legal reason to kind of keep them up. Say it's in minus 35, you don't want to make somebody more homeless. But now the weather's nice, so zero tolerance on the camps, absolutely. Yeah, zero tolerance at the shelter. So any kind of violence, possession of weapons, people are getting charged where we can, so long as we can get statements. Importantly, so this one here, prisoner trends, I thought this is important to demonstrate. So in 2025, year to date, we've had 603 prisoners. And that was a month ago, so we're probably up around 700 now, or so. When you compare that to the year before, though, we only had 404. Our crime trends have trended down, but generally we should not be so high. I guess 603 is the highest we've been at this point in the year in the last 8–9 years. The only thing that we can think of that has caused that uptick is we no longer have the Hope Mission rescue van operating. So in years past, in the last, well, I guess the last 2 years-ish, the rescue van had been going around and picking up people that were sleeping in fields, sidewalks, all that kind of thing. They were proactively doing that, so the police were never getting engaged with those people. Now that the rescue van, it's our members are picking up substantially more people on the drunken public passed out on sidewalks, so we're seeing more prisoners in our drunk tanks, simply put. Maybe there's another issue in there, but that's anecdotally what we're seeing on the front line. That's where the increase is coming from. Like I said, first upward trend since 2020. Yeah, no more rescue van. There is also a zero tolerance in the shelter. They are calling us for everything, and that was at our request. We can't have violence down there, so if somebody's acting up, we'll take them away. Plus, I would also attribute this to an increased officer presence in the area. You know, our guys don't turn a blind eye if they see somebody passed out in the field, but now they have to deal with them, not the rescue van. So Navigation Center, this is kind of unique. I'm not sure if I discussed this with council just yet, in this forum anyway. So the Navigation Center, Edmonton and Calgary have full-time navigation centers. It was set up by, it was a collaboration between the CPS, EPS, and the province of Alberta. So like I said, they're full-time. It's a one-stop shop for if you need identification, access to AISH, sexual health, you name it. It's kind of a one-stop shop if you need help. So it's been proven to work, I guess, in terms of engagement with people using it. So the idea we had here, and this was through our CSWB strategy in the city, is why don't we bring something like that here to try to deter some of our people that are either housebound or people that are couch surfing, or try to find, provide resources to some of these folks. We don't have the capacity to do a full-time shelter, but we thought, why not bring in a pop-up, we call it a pop-up navigation center. So our CSWB branch met with Minister Nixon. Just as recently as this Friday, we met with Minister Wilson to get some engagement there. Our community policing team has done tremendous work. So all this to say, on June 25th, with the support of the city, FCSS, AHS, we're gonna have this pop-up navigation center at the Salvation Army will be the location. From 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., I believe is the time. And the idea is for those who face barriers for access to certain social supports, they're gonna be able to stop in, almost like a trade show, where you go table to table. We have concessions set up for privacy, we have meals, but if people need identification, they can do a quick application there. And frankly, that's one of the largest barriers, is people not having ID to access services. So the intention is, if we can help in this capacity to try to break a cycle, maybe that starts bringing down our social disorder. But not just the people that we see visibly homeless, but we also have a significant proportion of housebound individuals, elderly who don't have regular access to these. So we do have, through FCSS, a plan in place to get these folks to the Navigation Center to help them out as well. So excited about it. I'm hoping this becomes a best practice where it can be applied throughout the province, but we have support here for sure. That's all I've got. I will actually, sorry, that's the end of the PowerPoints, but I know there was a couple questions from council the last time we met, and I just want to touch on a couple stats. I was going to, unfortunately, because we lost our analyst, I don't have fancy heat maps for a few of the questions that have come up in the past. The question was brought to me previous on where our violent crime is happening, and I don't have a heat map because I don't have an analyst right now. But I can say over the last 5 years, we're at our lowest point for violent crime, but over the last year over year, about 16% increase in specifically assaults. So we'll have to do a little bit of work on that. I'm not sure how. That was more of a crime reduction piece, but we are a 16% increase in assaults. Overall violent crime, we're at the lowest point in 5 years. And I should say it's a 20% decrease over 5 years. The questions come up in the past about sexual violence and sexual assaults. This year we've had 8 offenses related to sexual violence, which is a 47% decrease over last year, and no sexual violence is positive, at all. But we're again at our lowest point in 5 years. The best place to be is 0, but that's just kind of where we're trending. The one that often comes up as well is spousal violence. So year to date, so in 2025, we've had 139 instances of spousal violence, spousal abuse that we would, or domestic discord we would call it, so 139. In 2024, we had 396. So we're trending about where we were for last year. That being said, we still are at a 5-year low on it. So we were up around 700 and some in 2020. But that's just, I just threw it out there. Some of the stats that have come up in the past. Barring any questions?
I'll use this one. I move the council receives the Q4 2024-25 quarterly update as information.
Yep, go
I
ahead.
know, if I could. I've got a number of questions for you folks this morning, coming out of the presentation. And we've spoken about this before. I've got concerns about the community safety and well-being initiative, and our community's abilities to sustain it. So when you talk about leveraging the community safety and well-being strategy, who is leveraging it and who is it being leveraged to?
Yeah, through the chair. So when I say we're leveraging the strategy, our community safety wellbeing branch, myself, we're meeting with elected officials like at the province. Say when our director of CSWB met with Minister Nixon, she was able to go to the minister's office and say, Wetaskiwin has a plan in place. There's this framework, the CSWB strategy, this framework that was put in place a couple years ago. So when I say leverage, we're able to demonstrate that we have at least a plan or a foundation of a plan where other communities might not have that, and they might not be able to say, like, it's tough to go ask for help when you don't have a plan in place. We can demonstrate through the strategy that we have a plan in place. And I think that was demonstrated through Minister Nixon's support for the Navigation Center. I didn't touch on it here, but he was able to connect us with the right people to have mental health and addiction support at the table there, where before we wouldn't have had that. So that's what I mean by the leverage. Yep.
Okay, and also, John, when you talk about leveraging, there's been a lot of talk about a paid position to oversee our local initiative. And so as we leverage, I'm assuming that's part of the leveraging process, to get someone on board that can actually oversee this, so it's not being operated off of 2 or 3 people's side desk, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. The RCMP, we haven't asked for funding. Like, we haven't leveraged that piece of it. We're not in a position to go ask for positions, unless it's for an RCMP position. That's
Right.
kind of a non-starter right now. But I do agree, a strategy like this, with the complex issues that the city faces, it would be beneficial to have somebody in place that is solely dedicated to the strategy.
And then, if that being the case, and that not being your role, or you being unable to do so because of your mandates, who would be advocating for that?
So right now we have and through the chair, sorry, it's kind of a 3-legged table right now. We have the city, RCMP, and FCSS are at the table. Right now, Emily at FCSS she's very well connected. She's doing a lion's share of trying to find grant funding, see where we could actually land supports there. As recent as our last meeting, it's every door that opens seems to close pretty quick just because of structure and that sort of thing.
Okay. Under the topic of employment wellness, or employee wellness, you talked about gang enforcement exposure. What does that mean?
So through the chair, so gang enforcement, I'll say we do have gangs in town. Some aren't overly sophisticated, but they're very limited. But there are some very sophisticated gangs across Alberta, from organized motorcycle gangs to prison gangs, all that. But we're not exposed to it here. So the exposure is what else can we teach our members about gangs in the broader scope, like the bigger picture, to increase their knowledge on that we can now apply here. So we might not have, like I said, we might not have the biggest, most sophisticated gang, but if they learn about that, they can start recognizing kind of how it could develop and that sort of thing here.
Okay, thank you. Throughout the presentation, and we as council have talked a lot about, and to the public about this thing called social disorder. And I'm wondering if you could provide sort of a description or definition of what social disorder is, because I think a lot of our public draw a conclusion that if you see what might be a homeless person walking down the street, we've got social disorder. And that's just maybe people walking down the street. And so, what constitutes social disorder?
So social disorder, through the chair, I would say about 4 years ago, we used to just refer to as homelessness, visible homelessness. But then through the studies, we've all recognized it's not all homelessness. People could be causing social disorder, causing grief, that have quite nice homes, right? So for us, social disorder, broadly speaking, I would define it as anything that contributes to a negative perception of safety in a community. So loitering, graffiti, drunk in public, open drug dealing, just anything that contributes to, yeah, like I said, anything that contributes to a perception, negative perception of public safety falls under the umbrella of social disorder.
And then how does that manifest itself in terms of RCMP intervention? So there has to be, I'm assuming there has to be a breach of some kind of law, so to speak, in relation to actually apprehending somebody under social disorder.
Yeah, within social disorder, you'll have different crimes. There'll be, so the crimes that we consider falling under social disorder will have mischief, causing a disturbance, breach of peace, anything under the Liquor Act, drunk in public, et cetera. I believe there's one other. We've kind of got 5 crimes that fall under social disorder.
Okay.
Cause disturbance is kind of a catch-all as well, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the reason I ask the question is because, as I say, I think it's important for the public to understand that a sketchy looking person doesn't necessarily mean we need to call the RCMP, or 2 people walking down the street who look sketchy doesn't mean we need to call the police. And that's why I looked for the clarity there, so thank you for that. Now I'm looking for, I guess, maybe a personal perspective on impacts. You talked about the denying of photo radar, and you stated or alluded to the fact that you've seen an increase in speeding, drunken driving, and so on. So the impact is more demands upon your staff?
Yeah, through the chair, they can be. And here's the thing, like, speeding has always been there, and it, frankly, unfortunately, will always be there. I can't attribute the increase in traffic issues that we're having to the loss of the photo radar.
Okay.
Correlation and causation there. But I can say our members, we've got kind of a handful of members who are very good and very adept at traffic enforcement, impaired driving, and they're getting more and more and more. And what I've definitely seen an increase, there's a guy in cells right now, is the impaired driving piece. There's been a lot of that recently involving crashes and whatnot. I don't know if, I can't attribute that to the photo radar,
Okay.
but the photo radar is just one tool that's no longer there, so someone has to fill the gap.
Thank
So.
you. Your thoughts on the impacts of the closing of neighborhood outreach and the soup kitchen and the population they serve? Is there a potential impact to our community as a result of that may have an impact on policing?
Yeah, through the chair, 100%. So there is, the name escapes right now, Touchstone. Anyway, there was one service that shut down about 2 months ago, and almost immediately we saw more people on the street, but more instances of erratic behavior. The trouble is, when we have some of these services that shut down, the unintended impact of them shutting down is that these people are no longer getting help with their medications and whatnot. And so when people are unmedicated, their behavior becomes more erratic, so then inherently we're gonna get called there. So, and this, I don't have stats, this is only anecdotal. Clearly with our 606 prisoners, we've seen an increase. That might be a contributing factor.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question related to impact or potential impact in our community. Leduc has reported an increasing number of encampments in their community, and they're being very vigilant in tearing them down. But as I understand, they don't have any place to send those folks. So have you seen, or no, have you had communications with regard to Leduc policing and how they're dealing with that problem? And I guess what I'm leading up to is there potentiality for us to see more transiency coming this way because Leduc does not have a place for these folks when the encampments come down?
Yeah, through the chair, I have been in touch both with Leduc and the Hope Mission actually shed quite a bit of light on this as well. That was my concern last year when their shelter kind of shut down there. My concern was they would come south. Ultimately in Leduc right now, and I can't really speak on their behalf, but what I was told, like us, they have a zero tolerance policy on the encampments. Encampments go down, but the question is, where do they go? They're in a game of whack-a-mole right now, so they just keep springing up everywhere. So they're just kind of shuffling the problem around. There have been, and this is from the Hope Mission, through my discussions with them, some have gone to Edmonton, but generally people gravitate back to where they want to be. Are they coming south? No, they're not. As far as we've seen, as far as we've been told from the Hope Mission, we're not seeing any of that Leduc crowd come south. There's kind of a logistic piece of that. You know, generally people want to get close to Edmonton, not further away. But also this is a very difficult social structure to fit into. If you're new here, I'll be honest, it's a rough crowd. You'll have a very difficult time unless you have a social network already in place.
Okay.
Yep.
And my last comment, and I'm sorry for dragging this on.
That's right.
You know, first off, the information we get from you on a regular basis is greatly appreciated, and I would like to, and I think on behalf of many, many people in our community, thank you and all of your staff at the detachment for the work you do in our community, and just so you know, it is appreciated. Thank you, John.
Thank you. More than happy.
Councilor Bronco.
Thank you, Chair to John. John, a couple questions. Maybe you can answer, you can't. I look at the social disorder in 2020 and 2024, pretty close to the same. But yet we increased our foot soldiers patrol. And I would assume that maybe in 2020 we had 25 RCMP officers. I don't know what there, but now we have a lot more. But it hasn't gone down. And we keep getting the question, we need more foots on the ground. But I look at this and I see maybe just one, maybe certain crime have gone down, but I look at the social disorder, it's at the same. So if we're gonna go 35, you know, as a citizen looking at this, well, why are we paying for more people when nothing's happening on this aspect of the social disorder?
I would, through the chair, I would argue that the boots on the ground have impacted social disorder. The numbers have stayed the same, no argument there. But when you look at the heat maps and where the social disorder is happening, the vast majority of Wetaskiwin has benefited from boots on the ground, perception of public safety all across the city. But like I said, now we have to focus on that one real dense hotspot. Unfortunately, it's a very visible hotspot as well. So that high visibility down there, especially, you know, at the syntax corner there, it gives a perception that that's everywhere. But if you take a step back and look, it is objectively less busy, less social disorder across because of where we put our stuff. Can we find a way to improve and bring those numbers down? Absolutely. And that's kind of the goal of this year moving forward.
So, and my last question that I always wanted to ask you over the years. We have 35 members the city pays for.
I believe it's 49.
No, I mean directly to work with the city of Wetaskiwin. Our budget, I think, is $5.5 million, I believe.
Yes.
So I think it's 35, you say 49.
Yeah, there's the municipal employees in there too. I guess boots on the ground, it's 36. I have to go look at my spreadsheet.
So-
The moving target.
What would be the total hours that we pay for? Do you know? Or what's one foot soldier, I call it?
Well, each member, through the chair, each RCMP member works 3,617.2 hours, something like this. It's worked down to the decimal point. So times that by 36, and you've got to have to go back and see, most definitely.
So probably 1,000 hours each.
Oh, for the city, you're triple that. Yeah.
Thank you. Those are I always wanted to ask you that.
Yeah, 24-hour policing with that many members, there's a lot of hours there for sure.
Thank you.
Councillor Botts.
Thank you. Through the chair to Inspector Spans. I was just wondering if you could give us an update on the Youth Council and how many youth are engaged and how that initiative's going.
Yeah, through the chair, that's I'm really happy with how that one's gone. So we have about I wasn't at the last meeting, but it's about 15 youth from the different high schools are a part of it, and they were the same youth throughout, as well as I believe there was about 6 teachers there. We've got the city, FCSS has been involved as well. So through that, tremendous engagement. This month is going to be the last because school's done. And they identified crosswalks that could use some improvement. We took some of their perceptions of community safety. So like an adult perception of community safety is vastly different than a youth perception of community safety. So they were able to give us that kind of youth lens on what impacts their day-to-day. And I was early on in the process, I was surprised to hear it, honestly, had nothing to do with crime necessarily. It had to do with the condition of sidewalks. Really contributed. So it's that outside perspective has been great. So yeah, about 15 to answer your question. We're going to take a pause obviously over the summer, then kick it off again in September.
Awesome. And they're between the grades of 10 and 12, or?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. And is this a permanent initiative, or was this going to be short-term?
As long as I'm here through the chair, it'll be permanent. So this is part of my job is to create that legacy so that it's just normal and it always happens. I think with the momentum that we've gained this year, I don't see why it couldn't be permanent.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to the inspector. John, without photo radar, do we still have red light cameras, though?
Through the chair, I don't believe so.
Matt's going no. Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe so. No, it's all automated traffic enforcement restrictions were put on it.
Okay. Do we have bike patrols?
We do, actually, through the chair. We do have bike patrols. It's kind of up to the members if they want to use the bikes or if they're better suited on foot patrol. Just on briefing this morning, they talked about doing foot patrols. It's available. It's whether or not they use them.
Okay. And further to what Councillor Bronco was asking, we lost 4 members at the end of March. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel about getting those back?
Through the chair, I was hoping you guys would have some light at the end of that tunnel.
Oh.
Ultimately, the members for awareness, the members are not officially off the books. We're still working on our organizational chart, but they're empty. And the 4 members have, 1 has already transferred, 2 house hunted last week, and the 3rd will be moving probably next month, or the 4th will be moving next month. So we're at that point now where the members are moving out, and we're not going to be backfilling those. That being said, although we're not backfilling those 4, we have 2 of our officers who are off for whatever reason long-term. They're now back fully operational, so there's 2 more boots on the ground. And we have 5 members moving to Wetaskiwin over the next about 3 months. So to offset some of the vacancies that we have, so it's positive news.
Excellent, thank you. And just, Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Blatz, when we met with the youth, the other concern was we as older people thought it was wise to have all of our recreation facilities in one area so people could participate. And the youth were saying they're all at one end of Wetaskiwin, and we live in other parts of Wetaskiwin, and sometimes it's difficult for us to get to those activities, which, again, a different perspective than what our perception was when we put the facilities in. So thank you, Inspector. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anything further? Kevin or Matt, do you know how many encampments we've taken down so far this year? That's not true, because one's set to come down on the 28th. 3, and then one more coming up this week? Oh, okay. Perfect. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, Inspector. You as well. Item 10.1, Special Study Area Statutory Plan.
Good morning, Council. Morning. So as outlined in today's request for decision, administration has received various development inquiries within the area that's identified as the special study area in the MDP, included as attachment 1. Administration is recommending today that the city allocate funds to complete a statutory plan for this area in 2025 and 2026 for several main reasons. First of all, under our current municipal development plan policy 11.2.1, a statutory plan is required for the development of urban reserve land and strongly recommended for other undeveloped land. Second, the incentive structure is not there for existing landowners in this area to do this on their own. And finally, there is at least one specific development proposal that would already be submitting development applications if the statutory plan were in place, which suggests that there is value in moving this project up a couple of years from Planning and Development's original work plan. The RFD provides more detail on which supporting studies would be completed in detail and which would be completed at a high level to identify any future work required by property owners at the development stage. The total cost to the city for the statutory plan would fall somewhere between $200,000 and $320,000, depending on the refined scope of the project. To complete this study in a timely manner, administration is recommending reallocating the remaining funds from the Northeast Industrial Site Preparation Studies, which is about $39,000, and pull up to $281,000 from the contingency reserve. Another option is for this to be presented as an operating project in the 2026 budget, so it can be considered alongside other priorities. This, however, would mean that if it's approved, the statutory plan would not be completed in time for the 2026 construction season and would just increase the risk that development proposals would be abandoned. Another option is to break up the study into an east portion and a west portion and do the east portion first, since that's where the urban reserve land is located, and it's the most contiguous extension of the current urban area. This could reduce the short-term cost by about 25%, as a smaller area would be covered, but would likely add 50% or more to the overall cost and timeline of a statutory plan for the study area. It would also result in less comprehensive servicing and transportation studies, including the risk of some duplicate work. Council could also choose not to allocate resources for this project, the impacts being that it would largely preclude development on the urban reserve parcels and likely result in slower and less cohesive development on the other parcels. And with that overview, I'd be happy to take any questions.
That's up for you to decide. Thank you. Councillor Nielsen.
guess I'm just looking for, typically we put a motion forward.
Is your mic on?
No, it's not. This one's. Typically, we put a motion forward and then discuss it. But there are a number of options here, each with a number of different dollar values attached to it. And I'm wondering about the ability to ask questions prior to a motion.
absolutely.
Thank you. Through the chair, could you help me understand the cost differential if we were simply to support a statutory plan for the east half? Because you said it would cost 50% more.
To do the east half, through the chair to Councillor Nielsen. So when we initially, I went back to the people who provided the initial estimates to kind of confirm the assumptions that were made. Essentially, what would happen if we do the east half first, the same number of studies would still be completed. So the full slate, servicing, transportation, environmental, heritage, and so forth. Some of those have reduced costs if you're looking at a smaller land area and a smaller sort of set of locations that need to be considered. However, there is still a base cost to doing a study in terms of the research time required, the public engagement required, and so forth. So that remains the same regardless of the number of studies. Additionally, if you are looking at something that looks at a wider area, so something like the transportation impact study or servicing studies, there is a benefit to doing those in a more comprehensive manner and doing them in one shot, rather than looking at servicing components, say for the east part first, and then when you're looking at the west part, having to go back and reevaluate the east part, assuming now that you are extending those services further.
So then, Emily, in terms of, to do the whole thing, the estimated cost you came up with was, on the high end was what dollar value?
On the high end of the estimates I received was $320,000. On the low end was $200,000.
Right. And when would we know what the real costs are?
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, that would be once the scoping has been done and it's been tendered through an RFP process. So there would be a bid from a winning proponent.
And then the cost estimate on just doing the east half, what are we talking about?
If we're taking 75% of, say, the high end of that, I'm going to have to do some math here.
220. 20.
So it's about 75% of $320,000 is $240,000.
240. That's the high end.
That's the high end again.
So it could be 150,000 on the low end.
On the low end, yeah.
And, may I? Thank you. And currently, we only have one application development permit for the east half.
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, that's the number of concrete contacts we've had with individuals who would like to apply.
And how many are interested in the west half?
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, there are fewer very concrete development proposals at this point. We have had some inquiries regarding what is available to be done on certain parcels, what the zoning would allow, but there's less concrete interest in a specific application.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Bronco.
Thank you, Chair. So all these landowners have been contacted if they wanted to go ahead and kind of do a study on this, and is there a cost to them? Or do we get that cost when it's developed?
Through the chair to Councillor Branco, if we were to go ahead with a project like this, then the project team would be developing a public engagement plan that would include all the landowners in that area, and so they would be consulted and engaged as part of the process. Any direct cost to them would likely come if they are doing development on their land in the future. So for an existing landowner who isn't planning development, the impact to their land in the future is likely very small. A landowner for a vacant or an undeveloped parcel may see more guidance and sort of a more concrete list of what would be needed to make development on their land go more smoothly in the future.
But you said very small, so if the owner doesn't want this to go ahead, why would they have a cost at all?
Through the chair to Councillor Branco, I'm just thinking of the number of parcels in this study area that are, say, you know, an individual residential lot that already has a home on it. Unless there's a significant redevelopment proposal for those lots in future, then they wouldn't likely see an impact from a project like this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Emily. Emily, so for an extra 25%, we get the whole thing done, as opposed to just having the east side done for 75%. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, that's based on the estimates that I received, yeah.
And then your projection is that we would realize between $100,000 and $120,000 annually in taxes. So basically, if we went with even the most expensive, if that was realized, that's $320,000. It would be paid back probably in 3 years. Then 3 to 4 years would be the payback time.
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, based on discussions with the assessor, that would be the impact of just the one concrete development proposal. We didn't want to step further into, there are too many assumptions that would need to be made regarding other development in the area to be able to attach a number to that right now.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you. So, through the chair to Emily then, projecting off of Councillor Elliott's tax question, potentially the increase in taxes gained from a development could offset the expenditure in future years for the same statutory plan for the west portion. In other words, we could take the revenue from a development and use it to do the second half if that's what we chose to do.
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, that makes sense. That makes sense to me.
Okay.
If you were outlaying, say, that 75% short-term cost and realizing additional tax revenue, then that would change the cash flow for a decision on the west half in the future.
I'm ready to make the motion.
Sure.
I move the council approves the reallocation of $39,000 remaining from the Northeast Industrial Technical Study and the allocation of up to $201,000 from the contingency reserve for the preparation of a statutory plan for the special study area identified as the east portion of the 2024 Municipal Development Plan.
Moved by Councillor Nielsen. Any discussion? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think for an extra $80,000, we'd be getting more bang for our buck if we did the whole thing, as opposed to just doing one half. For $80,000, it would all be done at one time. Then if a developer came in, we would already have it done. We'd be ready to go. And I think for $80,000, although that's a lot of money, and I realize that, at the same time, we may get more money back in taxes if it's all done at one time, and we can encourage development on the other side sooner. Thank you.
Councillor Bronco.
Thank you, the Chair. So do we have developers ready to say, I want to purchase this land and build this?
Through the chair to Councillor Branco, we have one landowner currently who is interested in submitting a development permit application.
So, and that's the only income we're going to get until this land is all sold or subdivided. If we just do one land and nothing happens within 5-6 years or whatever, but we still have a drawing, a design, but there is no other income coming in to city coffers other than that one developer.
Through the chair to Councillor Branco, if the statutory plan is completed, then it's available to provide guidance and technical background and information to future developers who may want to come in. So it's work that has been completed by the city at the city's cost, but it remains available for future developers. We just don't have the specific development inquiries right now for those other parcels. We have general ones at the moment.
And servicing of these lots will be part of the city once this owner who has wants to get done at his expense, or the city would ask him to supply, once this is developed or plans in place, who provides servicing to these property?
Through the chair to Councillor Branco, the servicing is installed at the developer's cost as part of a cost of development, and then once the infrastructure is completed to municipal standards, then the city takes over the operation and maintenance.
Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you. I understand Councillor Elliott's argument, the biggest bang for your buck. I just worry about spending an extra $80,000 to $100,000 on a statutory plan for an area where we haven't and don't appear to have any real interested developers. I understand why we'd spend the money at this point in time to move a development forward that's ready to move forward, recognizing that the revenue that development will generate would provide the opportunity for us to do further studies as necessary until such time as we have somebody who's really serious and not just a bunch of tire kickers, because we've had tire kickers in this community forever, and in many cases nothing comes of it. And I think that's part of the whole development process. I understand that too. I just don't know that having $80,000 or $100,000 expenditure on something that isn't tangible is a wise choice of spending money at this point in time. Through the chair to Emily, when was this statutory plan identified in our plans to actually be done, prior to this individual having a development plan ready to go?
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, the area itself was identified as part of the 2024 MDP process, as you know, and then we had been looking at timing it for once the land use bylaw update was complete.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Were you going to say something?
I was, but go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the Councillor Nielsen, if we'd had the statutory plan in place, that development that is being proposed would already be started, probably. So that's why I'm suggesting the 80,000 for the other side. Somebody comes in and they're ready to go to work. Now they're going to have to wait until we do another statutory plan, which may take another year, and then maybe they will lose interest. So that's why I was thinking of the $80,000. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That was going to be my question. What's the turnaround time if we don't do both sections right now? If we were to put it off, somebody were to come in, we're interested in developing that east side. What's the timeline on being able to turn that around?
To the chair, likely approximately a year.
So one of the things that I keep hearing is that we don't have enough development, and I don't completely agree with that. We've had a lot of commercial development over the last 5 years, and I think that comes from the hard work of our economic development team, our planning and development, all of our city staff here promoting our community. We've seen development in areas that we were told were never going to be developed because we have social problems. We saw Denham Landing not being developed for 20 or 25 years after an area structure plan was done, but are now seeing development on that land. We're seeing more people moving into the community from outside of the province. I think that for us to be able to grow, it's us being ready to accommodate that development as it's coming in. And I think that it is a good investment on behalf of the city to work on these statutory plans to make sure that we're ready when that investment comes in. And I completely understand that not everything is a hit and you don't hit a home run every time, but I think that if we're not ready for it, it's not going to happen. So I would like to see the full amount done for the complete statutory plan to be done and not just one section over the other. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, could I amend I would make a motion to amend the motion that's on the table to the allocation of up to $281,000 from contingency reserve.
This is when I need Jackie. I don't know if this is changing the motion itself. I think we would have to defeat this and go with the other motion because it does include two sections.
Okay. All right, I'll wait till the vote. Thank you.
Yep. Anything further? So this is to approve the reallocation of $39,000 to $201,000 for 75% of the statutory plan. Those in favor? Opposed? Defeated.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we change the 201 to 281 because if I start talking, my voice is going to get lost anyway.
Fair enough.
So exactly the same as the previous motion, changing it to allocation of up to $281,000.
To do the whole study area identified
Yes.
in the MDP.
Yes.
Municipal Development Plan. Okay. Any discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Bylaws 12.1 Waste Management Bylaw 2084-25. Good morning.
Good morning, Council. Bob Otunde and I are here today to present Waste Management Bylaw 2084-25 for first reading. So administration presented the proposed Waste Management Bylaw update at the April 28th regular council meeting. I've summarized some of the changes below. I won't speak to them all, but I will talk about some of the changes were mostly wording, definition changes or additions, as well as inclusion of organic materials and collection. And then implications from the changes to the bylaw, specifically around multifamily complexes. The previous bylaw wasn't clear in terms of who can participate in the program. So some complexes do participate and some don't. The new bylaw provides options for administration to exclude multifamily complexes from waste collection. Administration will review the existing multifamily complexes to ensure a consistent approach is taken. With that, we can answer any questions.
Councillor Nielsen.
I move the City Council gives first reading to Waste Management Bylaw 2084-25.
Moved by Councillor Nielsen. Any discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 12.2, Bylaw 2092-25 to amend the Community Standards Bylaw 2069-24. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Matt Nicholas, Manager of Enforcement Services. Bringing forward this RFD for second and third reading. It's the amendment to the Community Standards Bylaw. I was here on May 12th for the first reading of the bylaw, and we've made no adjustments based off the recommendations of the last meeting. So we're looking for the second and third reading, where we're changing the definition of nuisance when it comes to long grass and weeds, and the charge section for loitering, taking out that they must harass or obstruct another person.
Councillor Blatz.
I move that council gives second reading to bylaw 2092-25 to amend community standards bylaw 2069-25 as presented.
Moved by Councillor Blatz. Any discussion? Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you. I've given this a lot of thought. I'm following our last conversation at the last meeting. I think Councillor Elliott raised the question about whether this bylaw would actually lower our standards in terms of creating neighborhoods that are unkept. And I've given that a lot of thought and actually spent some time just driving around many of our neighborhoods. So to Matt, my question is, some of our neighborhoods in our community, the standard that is there now, in my opinion, is one of long grass and weeds. There are some large sections in our community where that is the standard by how people are looking after their properties. And so enforcement would be, I'm assuming enforcement would virtually be impossible in those areas because the standard has already been set. The bar may already be quite low. How would you respond to that?
So currently the bylaw standard is 20 centimeters for long grass and weeds. So we do have to allow the grass to get to that height in order to enforce it. That's why you may see some long grass and weeds now. 20 centimeters is quite high. The RFD I presented last year when we spoke about this did compare many communities. Some were 15 centimeters, some had different standards. So right now it's 20 centimeters. With this change, it would allow us to look at properties prior to that to act on them a bit sooner. So definitely vacant properties, derelict properties that we know of is one of our main focuses that we want to get onto, especially ones with past history or they've had first or second offenses. We would like to target those, enforce them a bit sooner than we have in the past.
A number of the properties I guess I'm speaking to are not derelict properties. They're lived-in residences with, I'm going to call them unsightly. And as I said, they tend, in some areas, they are the standard. So if there's a complaint in an area where the neighborhood standard was, I'm being facetious with my remarks, 2 feet tall, you couldn't enforce that then because the neighborhood standard is at that level.
There is a potential in that, I guess, abstract. I don't know if any community houses have 2 feet tall grass and weeds, but there is annexed properties at the edge of town that are agricultural kind of fields or places that are undeveloped that we have been enforcing on that maybe we necessarily don't need to focus on that, but we need to focus more on community housing and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Councillor Bronco.
Thank you, Tyler. Chair to Matt. I was reading something here and I can't find it. On the waste bylaw, you had something about weight, correct? Is there waste, am I talking in the right one? Is that the right one?
Nope, we're in the community standards bylaw.
Okay, so that, I'm not in the one then. Nope, okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Couldn't figure it out, couldn't find it again.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Matt. Matt, these standards are the same for residential as commercial property, correct?
Yeah, Chair to the council, the standards are community-wide.
Pardon me?
Yes, they're community-wide standards.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So council's directed administration and have expressed frustration with unkept properties and have looked for ways for CPO officers to be able to use their discretion and to intervene earlier when properties were becoming unsightly. And I think this is a good opportunity for our CPOs to be able to use their discretion and intervene earlier to make sure that we don't have these unsightly properties in our communities. So thank you very much for the work that you've put into that, and I will absolutely be supporting this. Anything further? Those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
I move that council gives third reading to bylaw 2092-25 to amend community standards bylaw 2069-25 as presented.
Moved by Councillor Blatz. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, just a question through to Matt. So this won't just definitely be on a complaint basis. This will be when your officers are driving around, they see something, they could act. They don't have to wait for a complaint.
Yeah, Chair to the council, that is what we want to get to. Complaints will always be our first priority, and then proactive patrols would be second to that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Brocco?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Does this apply also to the city-owned properties that our bylaw officers drive by and our weeds are higher than?
Community-wide, yep.
Thank you.
Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Matt. Item 14, closed session, looking for a motion.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Blatz, those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
We got a couple minutes. We have something?
All right, looking for motion to come out of closed session, please. Counselor Blatz, those in favor? Carried. Motion coming out of closed session. So I move that council direct administration to work with Louis Bull administration to set up a date to bring both councils together in ceremony to strengthen relationships. And I will speak to that. So Chief Bull had asked me to come out to Louis Bull and attend one of their council meetings. And they were looking to start building the relationship between our two communities. The first would be through ceremony, and then hopefully being able to bring together some potential economic development opportunities, other relationship opportunities, and it falls under the calls to action under 45.3 in building that relationship. And so I would like to find a date that works for both councils to start that off through ceremony. And I will open it up to discussion. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you. I just think that this is a great opportunity for our councils both to get to know each other, but also to build that relationship that we've been trying to build for a long time. And I think that this is a really, really great opportunity for us to meaningfully build those relationships and make sure that they last for a very long time.
Anything further? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. New business, anything from administration?
No.
Anything from council? We are adjourned at 10:52. Thank you.